Okay? So first off, if I'm looking, it looks like your main questions were 15 and 18. In 18, you were solving for x. Okay? When you were solving for x, and in the 1 to 15, those were all solving for y. Now what I noticed is that in this equation, in 18, I have 3y minus 1x equals 12. Okay? So, as I look at that, remember when we solve for a variable, I want 1x, and I don't want negative 1x. There's a couple ways of doing this one. Okay? The one way of doing this is simply subtract 3y first. Subtract 3y over here, and subtract 3y from both sides of the equal, right? And I would have negative 1x equals negative 3y minus 12. And if you put 12 minus 3y, that would be correct also, right? But here's the thing that a lot of people make this mistake right here. They think this is the answer and they put x. You have to remember and divide by negative 1. So here's a better way that I think of solving this. Move the x. Move this x. If I move the x, what am I going to do? I'm going to add 1x to both sides. Now, when I move that 1x, I get 3y equals 12 plus 1x. And remember, I'm trying to solve for x, so now I already have a positive one, and I don't, because a lot of you will just drop this right here and think that's your answer. And now we're subtracting 12 from both sides. And both ways, I do get the same answer, 3y minus 12 equals x. Because that's what I get here also. Negative divided by negative is 3y, and 12 divided by negative 1 is a minus 12. This is the same answer, right? It's just a different way of writing it. And my hint is, if you have a negative in front of the x or y, just add it to the other side. It makes it just a little easier for you. Okay? Whitney.
Okay, so instead of like doing that whole shebang, I just find all the negatives, I turn them into positives, find all the positives, turn them into negatives. Okay.
Say it one more time.
So all the negatives, turn those into positives, because it's negative x. So then
So you like multiply everything by a negative 1. You can do that.
Yeah. That's
But what you're really doing is multiplying everything by negative 1. You're not just turning everything the opposite. You're actually multiplying, distributing negative 1. It's just that you're not saying that. Yeah.
Where do you get the negative 3y from?
So if I started here, this was the original equation, and I want to get this x by itself, well, how do I get rid of 3y?
Minus it.
Minus it. That's how I got negative 3y plus 12.
But what if you did it the way where you're trying to get rid of the 3y? Said it was like x on one side, and then you made it 12 minus 3y.
That's the same thing as negative 12 minus 3y is the same as negative 3y plus 12. Same. I just put the 12 second and put the y first. It's the same. All right. Let's look at 15. 15 you have to distribute. So when you're taking a look at 15, my first step is to have 4x minus 3y. Oh, and this is where the mistakes happen. Because we're distributing negative 3 times negative 2. Did you already have these done?
Yeah.
You do? Or you don't? You didn't have yours yet. You want to do it then. Okay? So 3x, and then we're going to have plus 6 equals 15 plus y. Did everyone have a plus 6 there? Mm-hmm. So that's good that you distributed the negative 3. We now need to get all the y's on one side. Now, to me, it's a lot easier to subtract this 15 on both sides and put 4x minus 3y minus 9 equals y. And now get rid of this 3y by adding 3y to both sides. And I add 3y and 1y, and I get 4y equals 4x minus 9. But we're not done with it yet. I need to get x by itself, and in order to do that, Jack, I need to do what?
Divide by 4.
Divide everything by 4. And the question that some of you were asking is, do I need to leave that answer? Can I put 4 over 4? No, you always want to simplify. You can put 1x, or you could just put x. You want to leave this as 9/4. Could you change it to 1 or 2 and 1/4? You could. I would take that too. But you can just leave it as that improper fraction, like that. And I believe I was checking that I attached to the daily planner the answers for 13. So when you do 14 tonight, you're going to see the answers. I put the answers up for 15 on the daily planner. I have the notes and the video, so if you're not getting that. And those of you that say, you know what, I lost my worksheet or I don't have that, make sure you check with me because we got to get your work. So whatever that happens to be, if it's at home, if you found it in the classroom where you left it yesterday, whatever that happens to be, okay? Yes?
Can't you just go online to Power School and then you can print out the homework?
On a lot of them, you can. It depends if I attach it or not. Yes. All right. Someone said, what do I have to show for work on this joke sheet, Mrs. Thompson? There's like nothing. The answers are down below. There's like nothing to do. No, there is something to do. So when you're looking at like number 5, and we need to solve for y. I don't know if you're going to do the work on here or on a separate sheet of paper, but I know when I get to 6 through 15, there's probably not enough room to show my work. So when I look at number 5, I want to get the y by itself. How do I get y by itself? What would we maybe want to do? Raise your hand. What are you thinking? Which?
Minus 3x.
I could subtract 3x. Now, again, we got to be really careful because that's going to leave us with a negative y, right, equals 10 minus 3x. I don't want to know what negative y equals. And look at how every answer is down here. Every answer has the what first? After the y equals, it then has the variable, right, then the number. So if I have this negative y equals 10 minus 3x, first thing, I have to divide everything right now by negative 1, right?
It's a negative. Yeah.
Negative 10. Good. Thank you. And when I do that, my final answer for number 5, and this is why I would do the work on a separate sheet, y equals, I don't want to put the number first. I want to put this part first. So negative 3 divided by negative 1 leaves me with 3x. Negative 10 divided by negative 1 leaves me with plus 10. And I notice that that is this answer down here. If you were going to pick one from this last column that you would like me to do, 11 to 15. Someone want to pick one that they go, ugh, not sure. Micah, go.
12.
Number 12. We're going to do 12 together, right? 12 is equal to 0, same with some of these other ones. I'm still trying to solve for y. So I write on my notebook paper, right, x minus 4y plus 2 equals 0. If you want to get the 4y by itself, to me it makes a lot more sense to move the 4y, right? Then moving the x and then moving the 2 and then dividing. So how do I move this 4y? I add 4y to both sides. What happens when you add 4y to 0? It becomes 4y, right? So 4y equals x, or 1x, plus 2. I like putting a 1 in front, especially when I'm going to divide. Jack, are you writing this down? I'm helping you out with your homework. This is in your workbook. This is on this 19. You can set your calculator down. Don't need that right now. Okay, so turn to this D13, the joke sheet, right where I'm at, and you should be writing this. I'm kind of giving you like helpful hints on how to do this. If I am looking at this, last step, Ellen, would be to do what if I want to solve for y? Divide by 4. So I put this division by 4 on all of these, and my answer for number 12 is y equals. I have a fraction here, but look at these answers in front of x. Keep it that way. 1/4 x plus 2 over 4. 2 over 4. I don't see any 2 over 4s because you can can simplify, and that is 1/2. So I am looking at this answer. And my guess is I'd be really impressed, and I actually won't be impressed. I will give you a 0 if you just have the answers with no work. Okay? I will not be impressed. I know it seems like it'd be an impressive thing that you could do it in your head, but I wouldn't be impressed, and I can't give you points on this. Okay? And I would like to give you points if you put in the work. So make sure that when you do this, this is that C 9 or 13C, that on 13C that you do the work someplace that I can see it. Yes.
What if we're to subtract the 2 from both sides right away?
You could have subtracted 2 and subtracted x. That would have worked. But then you got to divide by -4. Same thing. Yeah. And like in number 15, it's a simple problem, right? You're solving for what? There's only one step. You only have to do what? Divide by 2 and you're done. That's it. Don't make it harder than you have to, right? Some of them are pretty simple. Some of them are going to take a little more work on your part. I need to see that, okay? All right, so I want you to set that aside, close that workbook, because that page is not due tomorrow, right? Or today. And the one that was due was the 13A, every third question. And we're going to look at this part on literal equations. Literal equations. So, 14. We don't have much left. 15 is a little more practice with our literal equations. And then we're pretty much like, I don't want you to do it now. I just want you to take notes now. So, here we go on your notes. So, listen to this, and as you watch this video, I want you to write the definition for a literal equation, okay? So, as you are watching, you're going to take a look at this, and you're going to write the definition for this literal equation, okay?
Let's learn about literal equations. If we take a look at the name, it looks like a literal equation is a type of equation. And that's right. Now, an equation identifies a relationship between the left and right-hand sides of the equal sign. Now, to help us see a literal equation, let's go ahead and explore some equations. So let's write a few equations down. Let's say we have this, x plus 8 equals 12. This is an example of an equation. We have the left and a right-hand side of the equal sign. Here we're saying that x plus 8 is equal to, or the same as 12. We're saying that the left side is the same as the right side. Now, we can also have something like this. 7x equals 21. Here we're saying that 7x is the same as that right side 21. Or we could even have an equation like this. Y over 2 plus 5 equals 7. This is another example of an equation. Now, all of these are typical equations that you might see. There are also some other equations that you might see as well. Let's take a look at those. Let's say we have 3x plus 2y equals z. Here we see we do have an equation, but it's a little bit different from the ones we just saw. Notice, this equation has 3 variables, x, y, and z. All of these equations only have 1 variable. Now what if we had an equation like this? D equals r times t. This is another equation. But notice, this one just has variables. 3 variables, and no numbers. Or what if we had something like this? A equals 1/2 times b times h. Here again, we have more than 1 variable. Now each of these equations that has more than 1 variable gets a special name. These equations are called literal equations. A literal equation is an equation that has more than 1 variable.
You're writing it down, Caleb. You with me?
So each of these equations that has more than 1 variable is called a literal
Okay.
equation. Now, to help us gain a little better understanding of these literal equations, let's go ahead and take a look at some more examples. The most common type of literal equation is a formula. So let's look at some of those. Here we have A equals F.
So if I was going to ask you your definition of a literal equation, someone want to tell me what they wrote down from the video? Kylie. More than one variable. That's the key thing, right? We're looking at more than one variable. The best ones, or the ones you see most often, are called formulas. You've seen formulas before, okay?
L times W. We can see this is an equation where the left and right hand sides are equal. And we have more than one variable, A, L, and W. So this is a literal equation. This is actually the formula for the area of a rectangle. In this formula, A stands for the area, L stands for the length, and W stands for the width. Now, usually with formulas, we're given values for some of the variables, and we need to solve for the unknown variable. So say here we were given the area and the width, but we were missing the length. Well, in that case, we could plug in the values for the variables that we had, and then solve for the unknown variable, like L. Neat. Now, we can also have one like this. I equals PRT. This is a literal equation. It's the formula for interest. I is interest, P is the initial amount that we invest, R is the rate, and T is time. Or we could even have a literal equation like this. P equals 2L plus 2W. This is the formula for the perimeter of a rectangle. P is the perimeter, L is the length, and W is the width. Now, we can also have literal equations that look like this. Y equals mx plus b.
We're going to get into this one
This
quite a
is a
bit.
literal equation. It's actually the slope-intercept form for a line. Neat. Or we can also have one like this. Ax plus by equals c. Another literal equation. This one is the standard form for a line. So now we know more about literal equations. If you have an equation that has more than one variable, you are looking at a literal equation.
So,
Oh, wow.
your definition, you should have written down what is a literal equation. It should be an equation. So it has to have an equal sign, right, in order to be an equation, right? So key thing is, anytime we're talking about equation, must have an equal, okay? Must have our equal sign, and it usually, in our case, what they said for it to be literal, it is going to have 2 or more variables. The most common one are formulas. And as you look down below, you see formulas, right? Question, Hal? Okay. So you see all these formulas. These are common ones. We're going to be using some of them. So in your homework, if it says circumference and you go, I don't know the formula for circumference, you turn to this page in your notes and you go, oh, circumference is equal to 2 times pi times the radius. Area of a triangle, all of those formulas are there for you to look at, okay? It says, can you think of any other formulas? Are there any other ones that we might see if we were looking at formulas? So as you look at this, anyone think of any other formulas? Yes.
Well, I told you this. E equals MC.
The E equals MC squared, right? So you might see that one, right? When we see that one, okay? Gavin, you got another one?
Volume V equals H times L times W.
Yep, that's for a box, right? Volume of a box. Height times length times width, right? And there's many more, okay? So, what I want you to do is at the top of the next page, it says, solve this literal equation, A equals LW, and we want to solve, it tells you what you're solving for. Solve for L in terms of A and W, which just means A and W are going to be part of your answer. Now, if I want to get this L by itself, I have L times W. The opposite of multiplying by L is to divide. My answer, okay, not divide by L, we should divide by what? W. We're trying to get the L by itself, and so I can now write L is equal to capital A, please keep the uppercase and lowercase as they are written, A divided by W. Now, this next one is a really useful formula, especially with our cold temperatures that we've had lately. And sometimes if you've ever traveled out of the country, every temperature is reported in Celsius. We're the only country that does Fahrenheit. You go to Mexico, you go to Canada, you go to Europe, they're all doing Celsius. That's why your cars have the conversion things from Celsius to, and same with your phones if you're looking at that. So here's what we are going to use. We want to solve this for F, okay? So if we are solving for F, the first thing I want you to notice is we want to get rid of this fraction out front. How could I get rid of it? What would I want to multiply by on both sides, Jane? 9 is going to help me get rid of the fraction part, and I'm actually going to multiply by the reciprocal of this whole fraction. So please write down our first step is to take 9/5 times C equals 9/5 times, then we put our original equation, the 5/9 times F minus 32. I do not want to distribute first because I hate working with fractions and getting ugly decimals. But when I multiply with 5/9 and I multiply both sides by 9/5, what happened now is this becomes 9 over 9. It's the same as 1 over 1, and same thing here, 1 over 1. And I'm now left with F minus 32. That canceled out. That's nice. On this side, 9/5. Now, fifths are a nice way we can write those as a decimal. What is 9/5 as a decimal? 1.8. So please put 1.8C. Okay? Could we see how easily we could solve for F now? Sanjay, what do I have to do to solve for F? Add 32 to both sides. So we add 32. And I have 1.8 times C plus 32 is equal to the Fahrenheit temperature. So, if we were knowing, like our temperature outside, was it Fahrenheit or Celsius? So, how about if I tell you, you know what, we're traveling and we're up in Canada right now and this cold snap, and is it really this cold? And you're trying to figure out in Fahrenheit, because that's how most of us think. And I said, you know what, the Celsius temperature is at 7 degrees. And you go, oh, that's not bad, is it? All right, so what would that be? That if I told you you're someplace in Canada right now, would you be thinking it's as cold as it is here? Obviously not. But here's the deal. If you're ever traveling internationally, this 1.8 times C, that's almost 1.8 is approximately 2, right? It's really close to it. And so 2 times 7 would give us 14. And 14 plus 32 means that we should be at like about 46 degrees. That'd be nice here in the winter, wouldn't it? We wouldn't mind that. If we were talking about a negative 7 degrees, is that bad?
Yes.
Not terrible though, right? Negative 2 times negative would be a negative 14. That would give us negative 14 plus 32. But conversions with temperatures are often used. It's just a good thing that you can understand how to change the formula. Yeah, questions?
There's a snapshot filter for like finding out the temperature.
Yes, I believe that.
Did Fahrenheit click on it?
Nice. Nice. They took all the math right out of it.
I have a question. So for Celsius, 0 degrees is 3.
Hang on, we're going to save that for later. We're going to get through the rest of this because I want to get you started on your homework, okay? So we'll get your questions on that. But as we look at this, here's that other formula, right? Some of you are asleep, almost falling asleep. Let's everyone stand up for just a minute. Let's say grace. Your dollars that you're investing is called your P. That's your principal. The rate is R. T is time in years. And it says solve this for R. So I notice that I have P times R times T. In order to solve this, I am going to take I, and I am going to simply divide it by P and T. And on this side, I'm going to take P, R, and T, And again, I'm dividing by P and T. And we know that P divided by P is 1 and T divided by T. So my answer is, and I'm going to put what I'm solving for first. So instead of putting the R second behind the equal, I'm going to put it first. And I have just all these letters. R equals I divided by P and T. And then it says, okay, find this interest rate. Now, I know some of you in 7th grade might not be knowing too much about interest rates, but interest rates are usually, you might have a decimal for your interest rate, and we have to change it to a percentage because interest rates are usually written as a percent. So when we look at this problem and it says find the interest rate, I want you to write down R equals principal. That's what you invest. That's what this is. So P is equal to 1,500, right? This was our formula. R equals I times P over T. Divided by. So if we're looking at this, I is our interest. That's this 54. That's my I. So 54 divided by, because that's what I is. My principal was the 1,500. And the time is
1 year.
1 year. So that's 15 times 1. So on your calculator, you should be taking 54 and dividing it by 1,500. It's small, right? 0.036. Now, banks are not rounding it up to 4% for you. They are not. Because 4%, even a tenth or 100th of a percent is a big deal when you're loaning money or when you're giving them interest. So, this is our decimal, and what did I say for rates? We have to change that to a percent. So we're going to move our decimal over 2 places, and our answer would be 3.6%. So I put $1,500 in the bank. They're giving me an interest rate of 3.6%, and after a year, I have $54. Okay, just leaving it sitting in the bank and letting them use it, because then they lend it out to other people. Okay. Take a look at this last couple pages, and then we want to get you started. In this one, we need that formula for circumference. So you're going to start with that. So you're going to please write down C equals, circumference is equal to 2 times pi times radius. Now we usually don't put the dots in there for multiplication. If you like those, put them in. Okay. So keeping in mind our radius and our diameter, and it says, what is the radius if we know the circumference is 64? Round to the nearest tenth, use 3.14 for pi. If I want to solve for r, what should I divide both sides by? What is times r? What is times r?
Pi.
Pi, and what else? 2. So I'm going to divide by 2 and pi. So my formula for what is the radius? The radius is going to be the circumference divided by 2 times pi. So I now put what was my circumference? 64 feet. Right? I get 64 because it told me in the problem 64 was my circumference. 2 times 3.14. So I am going to actually have the radius is equal to 64 feet divided by 6.28. Put it in your calculator, please. And round it to the nearest tenth and don't blurt it out. So, change it, that's fine. What did we end up with? Kylie? 10 10 point, what'd you end up with? What? 1.9, so we are gonna go with 10.2, and in this case, we wanna label it with feet, okay? We're not gonna do that last one on the bottom. It's not a hard one to do, it's kinda interesting if you like butterflies and whatnot, and you're looking at where they travel to. I would like you to turn to D14 in your workbook. Why don't we just do 13? So this is on the back of your 13C, right? So 14 and 13C are kind of together that you are looking at. So turn to 14. It is only one page. What are they asking you to solve for in 1 through 8? X. The one that I think looks kind of the ugliest is kind of 6 and 4. 6 and 2 are kind of similar. So if you were going to solve for X in 6, first step might be to do what? First step in 6. What might you do? Multiply it by B on both sides. So let's do that. We're going to have B times Y equals X minus B over B. And we're going to put that in a parenthesis and take it times B over 1. I agree. What happens right away then is I no longer have this fraction, right? And I now have this problem, 5 equals X minus V. And is it pretty easy now to get X by itself? Just add the V, okay? So when you do some of these, they might look kind of terrible at first. They're not that bad. By plus V equals X. They just look ugly. Please turn, or please look at the bottom half. 9, 10, 11, 12. So, number 9 is not bad. Number 9 and number 12 are kind of similar, and you've done ones like 10 and 11. So 9 or 12, if I do number 12 with you, how can I get rid of the fraction? What would you do in 12 to get rid of the half? First step, multiply both sides by the reciprocal of a half, which is 2. So we're going to start this problem with taking this side times 2 and this whole side here times 2, right? Well, what does that leave us with? 2 times capital A. Please make sure you're keeping the capitals where they're capital and lowercase. 2 times a half? How nice. That's just 1, right? Times H. B sub 1 plus B sub 2. This is the formula for area of a trapezoid. What do I do now? I'm solving for, what did it ask us to solve for? B for H, right? Or B1, oh, B sub 2.
Are we going to have to memorize all these formulas?
I'm going to give you the formula. I'm just going to say solve for this letter. What do I want to do? Oh, yeah. Geometry, you got to have them memorized. Next, on Math 8 and Algebra, you got to have some of them memorized. It's like the standard, 8th grade standard. Some of these you do have to have memorized for your 7th grade assessment this year, too, because you have to do the math part of it. And you have to know the formula. They don't give it to you. So if I'm looking at this, how do I get B2? This is B1, this is B2 back here. How do I get this B sub 2? What might I do next?
Minus B1.
Oh, no, because this is in a parenthesis. How do I get rid of this H out here? I divide. Divide both sides by H, right? 2 capital A, 2 times capital A over H equals, oh, this is kind of nice. I don't have a parenthesis anymore, right? I don't have to write the parenthesis. B sub 1 plus B sub 2. Am I almost home free?
Yeah.
Yes. Nick, what do I have to do to solve for B sub 2?
Just add some numbers.
Nope, I want to get B sub 2 totally by itself.
Oh, then you divide B sub 1.
I have what operation here, Nick?
Subtract
I need to subtract.
B sub 1.
I need to subtract B sub 1. I can't divide. The opposite of adding is to subtract. I will tell you, I'm going to start, some of you that are behind on your homework, if you continue to be behind on your homework, I am going to be doing a log entry on you. The log entry is going to be asking that you get detention either with me or up in the detention room. Those of you, I forget it, I don't have it, I left it here, whatever your reasons are. I need you to start coming prepared. If that means, now this morning during advisory, it just so happened that the